So October 31st was the day when tracking for Spotify Wrapped of 2021 ended, and on that Sunday evening, it was a Sunday, you know the drill, like I cried a little at first, and not because Spotify stopped tracking my music, it's a Sunday, what are you supposed to do on Sundays? I just decided to go through my last year's Spotify Wrapped to see what I was listening to the most, and one of the top artists for the year 2020 was Rebelde, the band from that Mexican TV show that I loved when I was a kid. I did only get Spotify last year because I live in Serbia, and that is the year that it became available to us. Although I did use Spotify before. Allegedly. I allegedly had Spotify before. I actually used the VPN. VPNs are legal, right? This video is not, unfortunately, is not sponsored by ExpressVPN. I don't know, I guess I just like wanted to check out whether their music was on Spotify, and I just like ended up listening to their entire discography. Anyways, and then we're fast forwarding to the present time again. So it's October 31st. It's actually December that I'm filming. It's the December 12th as I'm filming this. So like maybe like we technically are fast forwarding to the past again. It's October 31st. I'm looking at my Spotify and I just start remembering random scenes from that show. And like that was my favorite childhood show. Like it was a very big part of my preteen life. Like, you know, the shows that just like defined one part of your life. This is that show for me. Like I had a full Facebook fan page dedicated to them. Like I made edits, I wrote stories. It was a full-time job, and I just want to try to retell this entire show purely from my memory. I did not look up anything before I sat down to film this, so this is all going directly from my brain onto this wall right here. I did watch 1/3 of the first season a year ago for a video actually, but like anything past that I haven't seen in at least 12 years. So I'm not cheating, but I'm also kind of cheating for the beginning, but it's also been a full year since I watched that, so it depends on how you see it. Finally, welcome, and here we go. Trigger warning. This is gonna be all over the place, so if you are a control freak, wouldn't recommend watching. If you have ADHD though, you might actually even like love this. I take that back. I don't know anything about ADHD, so don't look at the back of my head. I don't know what my hair looks like from the back. Okay, I took the rest of the day off to at least visually organize what I want to say, and I assembled this. If it's confusing for now, just trust me on this. Everything will make sense soon. Trust the process, okay? Also, if you can see the shelf up here, well, so can I. So here we have the big six: Mia, Roberta, Lupita, Miguel, Diego, and Giovanni. Also, the show was filmed in such high resolution that most of the pictures I downloaded were put through that app that like gets rid of the grain of the photo and enhances the resolution. And that was like one of the first actual evidences that I do in fact have just a few more years than I'd like to admit. Now, all of them have 2 friends each. So Vico and Selena for Mia, Roberta, Lupita, and Jose Lujan. Miguel's friends are Theo and Nico, and then Diego and Giovanni are friends with Tomas. Now, LGBTQ plus characters. This was 2004, but if we were being honest, Jose Lujan always gave me a Hey Mama's vibe. And it wasn't because she played football or liked sports. That has nothing to do with that. Actually, like the fact that she was the sporty spice of the group, that actually wasn't telling me anything about her sexuality, but her lack of taste. I said what I said. Also about him, I don't know what he is, but he's not straight, and that was a wasted opportunity. Alright, so the show is set in Mexico, in Elite Way School, which is this bougie boarding school they all go to. Now, starting with Mia. Mia is a daddy's girl whose mom is dead, but is actually not dead because this is a soap opera after all, and she returns later on in the show. But she does have an uncle, Carlo. Now, Mia is endgame with Miguel, whose dad is dead, but for real, and he died because of Franco. It's Franco's fault for some reason, and the reason is actually enemies to lovers trope between Mia and Miguel. Oh, you know what? Never mind. It's not his fault, it's his brother's fault. I just remember that. We'll talk about Carlo in a minute, but Franco took the blame for Carlo. But I also think Franco didn't even know someone died, because now I'm kind of remembering one scene where Miguel confronted Franco and he was like, "You killed my dad," and Franco was like, "No." Also, Carlo went to jail in the end, right? Franco turned him in, right? Anyways, Miguel signs up for this school in order to revenge his father's death. I think he wanted to kill Franco or to seduce Mia and break her heart, or both preferably. I don't know, like currently I don't have anything else to say about their relationship. Like she was a brat and he was normal, but it just worked. Oh, also these two went on vacation once and they like decided to visit a desert island and they rented out a boat, and then they lost that boat and they were stranded on that island for like a few days, and those were the most dramatic few episodes of my life. They also ended one of these episodes on a cliffhanger that Mia died because she fell off a cliff. I don't know how they returned to land in the end, but like they made it seem like they were dying over there. Like all they did during those few episodes was slowly die out of heat and hunger and like declare their love for each other and cry a lot. They were covered in sand, I remember that. Mia wore a hot pink bikini, I think, or was it blue? No, she wore a blue bikini. This is why I have memory problems, because I'm storing this in my brain. Anyways, Miguel, might as well just use all of it. Miguel had a shirt tied over his head because he was trying not to get a heat stroke. Hot. And they ended up on that island because Roberta switched their tickets. They thought they were going to Monterrey to visit Miguel's family, but Roberta left them a letter. And she said like, sounded like, I'm gonna paraphrase it, it's been years, but it said like, Mia, you stupid bitch, I love you and you deserve this vacation, but I hate you. XOXO Roberta. Sound like that. Later on in the show, Miguel has an accident and he ends up in a coma and loses his memory. So we have Roberta Pardo Rey. Roberta Pardo Rey, more like Roberta Pardo Slay. If you ever find a Roberta Pardo fan edit, tag me. Roberta walked into Eliway school with this iconic 3 shades of orange situation on her hair, and every girl watching the show wanted it too, immediately, myself included. And then, a few years ago, every girl's dreams were shattered because we all found out that it was fake, but we still all want the hair regardless. Roberta has a mom, Alma Rey, who is a pop star, and her dad is absent, but her dad later on like practically kidnaps her once and like forces her to stay with him. I think in the States somewhere, I'm not sure. And then she like tries to make a rope out of bed sheets to like escape. I don't think she escaped like that. Roberta's mom, Alma, lives with her assistant and they end up adopting and raising a kid together. I mean, technically her assistant adopted him and like it was her child, but like the two of them raised him together.
And they were roommates.
Alma ends up marrying Franco in the end, making these two half-sisters. Oh, I haven't told you, these two hate each other. Maybe I skipped a few episodes, but this relationship was very random because Alma and Franco hate each other and then just suddenly they're dating. So my guess is that the showrunners just didn't know what to come up with next. So they probably just like, they probably made a board actually like me right now, and they were just like, who hasn't dated yet? Also, every interaction Alma had with a man was uncomfortable and they were borderline objectifying her. And when I say borderline, I mean they were objectifying her. They were making her uncomfortable for being hot. Also, while we're on a topic of sexism in this show, we have these characters. You'll notice they don't have names written under them. That is because I didn't feel like they deserved it. I'm gonna put them here. But their only purpose in the show was to hide under a desk, take a digital camera, and take not for aesthetic purposes, but because this was 2005. They would take that camera, stick it on a girl's skirt, and take a photo of it. And it was always followed. Those scenes were always followed with a cartoon sound effect, and it was never addressed, and it always made me uncomfortable. I was a 6-year-old watching this show and it made me uncomfortable, and I will never understand how it didn't occur to grown-ass people making this show that this maybe is not the best message to send out to kids, because it sent out a message of like, boys will be boys, and that's like, they took a camera, took a photo of girls' ass cheeks. Sitting talking, taking notes. And the thing that bothered me the most about these scenes is that they were just like used as filler scenes, like as transitions between two main subplots of the season. You know, just do a swipe the next time. How about, check this out, look, do this. Do you see what I did? Try to use that the next time maybe. I don't know, just a thought. Like, I'm not an expert in filmography, but as an expert in being a girl, I'm telling you to stop. Now, Roberta is endgame with Diego. They also, surprisingly, have an enemies to lover story, but for these two it was very clear that they liked each other from the very beginning, unlike these two, for example. Like, he really didn't like her at first. He wanted to push her off a cliff once, but these two had a crush on each other from like the very first time they saw each other, but were too proud to admit that. These two kissed for the first time at Roberta's birthday party that she celebrated with Mia because they share a birthday. They also kissed at the same party, not for the first time though. They kissed for the first time like during a fight, and they just like pretended like nothing happened the next day. I remember I was like watching it, I was so excited. I was like, yes, finally they're together, and they just gaslighted me. I think we had like a parallel montage between the two kisses with like a sad, heartbreaking song in the background. It was probably Salvame. They use that song for every kiss, or maybe Un poco de tu amor, because it's like a slow burn song and that can add like to the tension of the kiss. These two also dated in real life, allegedly. Messy. Two of the hottest people on this board dated in real life. How shocking. And they really try to make these two girls complete opposites. Like, Mia was all like pink fairies and rainbows, and Roberta was like black, rock, skulls, and drugs. But she couldn't do drugs because it was a PG show. And even at that like birthday party, Mia's guests were dressed in like white and pastel pink, and Roberta's side it's like a wedding. Roberta's side was dressed in like red and black. Roberta also had a boyfriend during that time that looked a lot like one of their professors that I'm gonna put up here soon, and I skipped a few episodes before watching the party episode, and I just saw that she was like full on dating her professor, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, I was just fine with it because it wouldn't be the first time it happened, but we'll get to that. Roberta is also just like such a teenager. Like, she just so aggressively is trying to not fit in. Like, doesn't even matter where, or she just doesn't want to be like others around her. So she was basically just like every girl in high school. No, but she was always my favorite, and she always will be. For some reason I found a lot of myself in her while I was watching the show, which is really weird because like I was never nearly as cool as her, you know, and I never did the things she did, but like mentally I was her, but she was just like brave enough to show it and practice it, you know? Even though she did a lot of like questionable shit. She once decided to light up fireworks in a bus full of people, a moving bus full of people, just to like fuck with Diego, just because she could. Fireworks in a bus full of people, and I was like, so what? So what if he's the devil, Rick? Also, I mentioned this in my Rebelde commentary, but I'll say it again. Roberta and Diego have nothing in common besides their daddy issues. That is a fact that I will be saying till the day I die. Roberta also dated Mia's uncle, or not dated, she kissed him, but she liked him, but he was in love with her mom, or dated her mom, one of the two. But yeah, she wanted to kiss him, and he was like, that is illegal, sweetie. So I think he had some common sense. Although he did go to jail for killing a man, but it was not for dating an underage girl. Also, Roberta and Miguel are besties. Mia and Diego are besties. These two are like your usual spoiled rich kids, and these two, I mean, she is too, but like she's more like your, like the rich kid that pretends like she doesn't need or want the money she's given, but still decides to use her privilege in her own favor. Although she did have a few selfless acts, I can't be too critical of her. Oh, also, these two couples never dated. Mia and Diego and Roberta and Miguel, they did kiss in this one iconic scene when they went on a school trip. I think to Canada. There was snow. Miguel also wore a hat that like extended into a scarf. It was a fashion disaster. He kind of pulled it off though. So they went on that trip and they like played a game of like who can make the other couple more jealous, where they like kissed interchangeably. So like Mia and Diego would kiss, and then they would just like stop and look at the other couple, and then Roberta and Miguel would kiss, and then just stop and look at the other couple, and then that just went on, and the rest of the school just circled them and cheered. Also on that trip was when music video for Salvame was made, and also there was one scene where you could see the mic in the corner. I think it was like the upper right corner. It didn't end up being like that subplot of The Office where they like included the mic guy and like kind of broke the fourth wall. It was just like an outtake that they just kept in, because as I said in my Rebelde commentary, I feel like they didn't care too much about the show, and they just like filmed and just like went with the footage they had. I specifically remember this one scene with Mia and Selena where Selena just starts laughing uncontrollably and like very obviously breaks her character, and Mia just goes like, why are you laughing, and just like continues with her lines. Like they tried to pull it off, but like clearly didn't, but they still kept that scene in. And the fact that such a half-assed show ended up being this iconic speaks volumes. Also on that trip, these two had an interesting conversation of how life would be so much easier if they dated each other and weren't in love with the other two. They never dated for real, to my knowledge, like these two couples, although Diego did date Vico for a while, and that was like the closest he got to Mia. Miguel dated Selena too. Miguel dated Vico as well, that's right. I kind of like them together, I'm not gonna lie. You know what I just remembered? Mia's friend group was called Mia's Club. What the fuck was that about? I mean, okay, icon behavior, first of all, but like to name your friend group by your name and like assert your dominance like that, that's kind of a red flag. What else? I mean, we can always talk about Roberta's constant struggle of living in her mom's shadow all the time, and that's basically why she feels the need to contradict everyone always. Also, Mia's issues with her dad and her constant need for his attention because he's working all the time, and all she wants is basically just a big hug from him. Definitely cannot forget about Miguel's serious anger issues throughout the entire show, but that's just like, if we're gonna dig a bit deeper into the characters, but I feel like it's more fun if we just stuck to dating history. But speaking of issues, my man, Alexa played daddy issues by the neighborhood. Diego is a son of a politician, question mark. I'm not entirely sure what he does for a living, but I do know this one thing. So Diego's dad is training his son to be this first-class asshole full of toxic masculinity that has this mentality of like a man should be this macho man and a woman is a hole, basically. He once found out that his son is a virgin and he hired an escort to date Diego and sleep with him. Obviously, that was his ultimate goal, for his son to not be a pussy. And to finally see one, I guess. Other than have a bad relationship with his father, Diego doesn't really do much in the show and doesn't really have any other personality. Not like this isn't enough, like this is enough trauma for a character, but just like he doesn't really do much in the show. He was obviously hired to just be this hot guy and that's it, but they accidentally hired an even hotter guy for Miguel. I'm not saying that Diego isn't hot, I am just saying that Miguel is. Roberta and Diego also have another enemies to lover story that just crossed the line completely. Like, I cannot explain you how many times they pretended to be dating. I think they actually like fake dated more times than they actually dated in the show. And like the fake dating concept is fine, but if you do it once, you don't base an entire couple on that. I feel like the biggest problem for all of these couples is that producers chose a trope for each of them, and then they just, as the show went on, they realized that they eventually had to make them finally date, and then they realized that if they just had them be in a happy relationship, that is also going to be boring for the plot, so they just decided to repeat the same plot from the beginning and just go in circles. And I ate that shit up every single time. Keep it up. They mostly fake dated because Diego's dad, Senor Asshole, didn't want his son to be in a band, even though like band members, they like fuck, right? Like every 2 days I get a TikTok of a girl saying she slept with a 5 Sauce member in like 2015. Isn't that like what Bustamante wanted? Oh no, see, a musician doesn't necessarily equal to an abuser. I get it now. Diego also, taking inspiration from Miguel's amnesia, faked one in order to get with Roberta. That was because of a bet he made with Tomas that he will make Roberta fall in love with him. Tomas also dated Vico, right? Yeah. Oh, she dated Giovanni too. This bitch. She had them all wrapped around her finger. This is the true main character of the show. Honestly, I loved Vico with Giovanni. I wish they ended up together. She ended up with this dude, Rocco, in the end. I didn't even print out his photo. I mean, he deserved a boyfriend, if we're being honest. You know who Giovanni should have dated? Right? I don't know, I just came up with this. And I low-key love it. No, but there was like a really cute height difference between them. They were also in the same cult at one point. What a cute love story. Lupita. Lupita is the poor friend. She has no money. She is poor. Zero. Nada. And she has a scholarship. She is poor and she has a scholarship. And she is shy. She's like the girl next door on a scholarship. And poor. Those are her keywords. Poor, scholarship, and shy. Lupita's aunt works in the school's cafeteria, and I'm only mentioning this because of this one scene where Mayra was giving Lupita a haircut. Nothing wrong about that, but it was in the school's cafeteria where they eat. She was just like chopping off her hair. Sanitary queens. Lupita's BFFs are Roberta and Jose Luján, and they're kind of like, especially Roberta, is kind of like a bad influence on Lupita, and she always like challenges her to do all of these forbidden things, and Lupita's always like, no, Roberta, let's not do that, but does it anyways. They also once dyed their hair together. That was like a big thing. Also, that's another thing. That entire hair dyeing scene was really randomly put in the show once, and that's why I feel like the actresses of Roberta and Lupita just wanted to dye their hair for real, but the production team was like, hold up, content, and that's how it was made. People of the Rebelde team were actually the first YouTubers. But yeah, in that scene, Roberta is dyeing her hair red and is convincing Lupita to get like blue highlights or something like that, and Lupita's doing it, but all the time she's just like screaming, no Roberta, we're not supposed to do that, like no, oh my god, I'm so shy. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know why I always hated Lupita. Like she never did anything wrong, like she just existed in the show, and I was like, you better stop doing that. I mean, I know I hated her because I was exactly like her, just like personality wise we were exactly the same, but like still, even though she was like that, she still like did things and I did nothing. So we were the same, but she still had like more exciting things happen to her. That's why I hated her. All right, so Lupita is in love with Nico, but Nico is Jewish and Lupita's a Catholic, I think, so Nico's family doesn't want them to be together because of that in theory, but it's actually because Nico is in this kind of like this arranged marriage situation, relationship with Karen, and Karen's family is like hella rich, so that's the reason why they don't want Lupita, because I don't know if you knew this, Lupita is poor, and that was it. Actually, they surprisingly never ended up being together. That was like one obstacle they never managed to cross. They did get married once though. This wedding scene is one of those scenes that I wish were just a fever dream, but actually a lot of scenes from this show felt like a fever dream, but they actually happened. Like for example, the boxing match between Mia and Roberta that just happened on this like one random day, or their first TV performance where they kidnapped this talk show host, tied him up, dressed him up as a clown, dressed themselves up as clowns as well, just because they could. Literally, like there was no reason. Like they saw some clown paint in the break room where they were holding a guy hostage and just put it on themselves, put it on the guy as well, and then they tied him up, sat him down, and they had this impromptu audition, and the guy included them in the show that very night. While they were doing that, Roberta snuck out, saw a break room with the name Lenny Kravitz on it. She walked inside, Lenny Kravitz was sitting there tuning his guitar, and she was like, what the, you're Lenny Kravitz? And he was like, yeah. And then he signed her his guitar and gave it to her, and that was it. We just moved on. And then they had their first TV performance. No, she first met Miguel in the hallway. Oh yeah, she was like walking with his guitar. Miguel was just like chilling in the hallway, and she was like, I met Lenny Kravitz. And then he went, Lenny Kravitz? And then they had their first TV performance. That was also the episode where they named their band. Giovanni recommended the name Giovanni and the Chickens or something like that, and Mia obviously wanted Mia's Club, Legends Only, and Lupita said BFFs or something like that, which is 4 out of 6 members hated each other at that point. Oh, I also haven't talked about the fact that they like had a band. That was like the main plot of the show. Well, I talked about the process of them like forming the band in my Rebelde commentary from last year, so I just wanted to skip it in this video, but to keep it very short. Miguel and Nico wanted to form a band. Nico wanted to be a manager of the band, and then they held an audition for only Roberta, and then Diego was somehow in the band as well, and Selena was in the band initially, but she didn't come to their first gig, which was in a club that Nico was the owner of, that his arranged marriage girlfriend's dad bought it for him. And then they formed that band to like have some music in the background in the club, right? Why did they form that band? No, they couldn't pay for the bill. The entire school was in the club one day, and then they couldn't pay for their drinks. They couldn't pay for the bill, so they were like, what if we just like sing a song instead? So Mia, Miguel, Roberta, and Diego sang a song instead of paying for the bill. And then they had the audition for Roberta, and then all this happened. Anyway, Selena wasn't there at their first official gig, so Mia filled up her spot. And then Giovanni and Lupita just like literally jumped on the stage and started singing too. And that's how the band was formed. And this band was forbidden in the school, so they always had to like sneak out in order to rehearse. But also I think they once went on like a literal world tour during one of their breaks, and then they just like went back to school and walked in like nothing happened. Anyways, Lupita and Nico had a wedding. So yeah, that wedding happened. It was trigger warning emotional, and it didn't count. It was for sentimental purposes only, because Nico moved after that. I think he wasn't even in the show, and that's why they had the wedding, to like say goodbye to their character. And then Lupita started dating a guy with a neck tattoo. Santos had a neck tattoo and he dated Lupita. That's all I remember when it comes to this character, but not like a dope neck tattoo, but like an early 2000s TV show character neck tattoo. Lupita also dated her sister's boyfriend, or now that I think about it, maybe she didn't. Lola was Lupita's younger sister slash cousin that suddenly transferred to the school, and she was in love with Leonardo, who liked Lupita. And then I don't know who ended up with who in the end. I guess they ended up together and she was with Santos, right? Also, this guy gives me Taylor Lautner vibes now that I'm looking at him, and I don't even know, like, I wish I could explain you what I mean by that, but I don't even know myself because I only know Taylor Lautner from Twilight. And even there, he wasn't Taylor Lautner, he was playing someone else. He was Jacob.
Where the hell have you been, Luca?
Black. So I don't know what I mean by that. I also never seen Sharp Boy and Lava Girl. Lastly, we have Giovanni. Giovanni is the comedic relief character in the show, and that's it. That was his story. He also lies about his social status. So his parents are butchers, and he like doesn't want to admit. He's like in Camp Rock. Oh my god, low-key, Giovanni is Demi Lovato in Camp Rock. There was also this girl, Sol de la Riva. She was introduced later on in the show as like the antagonist because the show didn't have those. Everyone just kind of like coexisted. She was meant to be Mia's competition, but she was never even close to Mia because you can't beat Mia at her own game. And then I think she dated Giovanni for a while and Tomas as well. Wait, maybe she dated Miguel too, because I don't see how you can be Mia's competition if you don't want Miguel. Did she date Diego? Wait. What? Wait, something's not right here. These two also dated. I don't know anything about these two. Like, I know that she was an orphan and she liked football. And he had an older brother that was in the cult, the school cult that was called Logia, right? And then he had to be in the cult as well to like nurture and like keep up with the legacy. Theo actually had two things in the show. So he had an older brother that was a cult leader, and the second thing he had was a glow up. That's all Theo did that I remember. He also dated Roberta, that's right. Messy. To be completely honest with you, I kind of like them together. Theo was like the good guy that didn't want to be part of the cult, which was also just so mild. Like, that cult, all they did was occasional mild vandalism. Like, they once cut up Vico's clothes for some reason because as like a warning sign to not date Miguel. Why? Hold on, I'll explain why when the tractor passes. Let's wait. Logia didn't like students with a scholarship. They wanted them muerto. Miguel had a scholarship. That's so dumb. Anyways, the cult didn't like that he didn't want to be part of the cult, so they tied him one day and tried to set him up on fire, but Miguel saved him, and together with oh my god, Giovanni saved him too, because Giovanni was working as a double agent and he was in the cult but was actually the good guy. But do you know the real reason Giovanni saved Theo? Because he was in love with him. Everything makes sense now. So Giovanni and Miguel saved Theo from dying in a fire with the help of this one professor. Now, this one is important. This is Madariaga. He was like that professor you just like have a deep connection with. And considering that most of these characters had either mommy or daddy issues, or both, they obviously were very attached to this guy. He was like that one good professor that everyone loved, but then he just dipped one day. So one day, we get introduced to a new professor in the school, and they fall in love. And I have this core memory of their first kiss. So Madariaga is sitting on the desk in the classroom. She's grabbing his face and kissing him, and his head is huge compared to hers. Just like twice the size of her head. Him leaving led to a new professor entering the school, and that was this guy, the groomer. Gaston started dating Mia. Now, this was grooming 101, and it was actually quite disturbing because Mia never seemed like she wanted to be in this relationship. Gaston also talked to Franco a couple of times about how he loved his daughter. I'm pretty sure Franco was like, what the fuck? Everyone was against the relationship. Mia also hated him, but she never said no, and he took that as a yes. Honestly, this was like a good representation of a teacher-student relationship. Like a traumatized student who is afraid to say no out of fear and power dynamic, and a predator teacher who uses that in his advantage. Gaston was Jose Lujan's guardian. I just looked up his character because I couldn't remember why he was in a show, and now I remember he was tormenting Jose Lujan all the time, and then later on we found out that he was her guardian and he was paying for her tuition. And lastly, I'm just gonna add these three characters. I don't have anything to say about them because I never really cared about them, but they're like a part of the show. So we have Pilar, who was the principal's daughter, and she dated Giovanni and Tomas. I think, why did these two share girlfriends all the time? Wait, maybe she didn't date Giovanni. She dated Tomas, I know that. Doesn't even matter. So she was the principal's daughter. This was the principal. Honestly, he was really creepy. Lastly, we have Alicia. She was the secretary and she was in love with Gandia, the principal. They put her there to be like the funny character, but it was just cringe, if I'm being completely honest. And that is it. Here's the final product. Maybe I'll do like an actual commentary video on the plot, or like a part 2, because I already did one part of season 1. Or maybe I can do this with some other show. Also, I saw this from Mike's Pretty Little Liars video. I forgot to say that.